What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Now that Riot is, kind of starting to finally release features and all sorts of stuff that the community's been requesting for a really long time now, it kind of got me thinking about the new map, Magma Chamber, that was actually teased for so long before Riot eventually told us that it had been cancelled a while back in Season 3. And so I also wanted to make a video about what Magma Chamber could have been, so we thought it'd also be kind of cool to make a video focused on the actual version of Magma Chamber that was showcased back in the All-Star Showdown of 2013, which wasn't really Magma Chamber, it was more just a 1v1 or 2 versus 2 game mode, and that's what we're going to be focusing on for the video today. And if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button. And as well, just before we start, I wanted to give a quick shout out because I wanted to announce that we're actually officially launching the start of 2 new channels this week. That's right, not 1, but 2. So now we're starting a first channel called Overwatch Curios, which is going to be an Overwatch channel very similar to what we do with League of Legends and Hearthstone, like some interesting commentary types of videos, that kind of stuff. And we're also going to be launching our League of Legends Moments channel, where we're going to be doing community videos and montages and stuff similar to what we've got going on with our Overwatch Moments channel. And of course, to celebrate the launch of the channels, we're going to be giving away $200 worth of RP. So that's going to be $20 10 times, so 10 winners, and it's going to be super easy to enter. Just check the link in the description and go through the Gleam competition there, and it's all very simple and definitely won't take longer than like 30 seconds or so. Again, just check the link in the description, and we'll be announcing the winners on Twitter at the end of the month, so follow us there if you haven't already, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. So after Magma Chamber was first used in the All-Star Showdown, a public release was later planned as a way to put a new map and game mode into the game. So the win condition for Magma Chamber was one of 3 options. Either you kill 100 minions, destroy the first turret, or get first blood, assuming you're playing 1v1, or 2 kills if you're playing 2v2. The Magma Chamber map was actually originally designed to be quite different and actually be a 5v5 map, but that's going to be a topic we're going to take an in-depth look at in a different video. So the public release for the final version of Magma Chamber was meant to be this 1v1 2v2 game mode, which definitely would have made for a really interesting addition to the game because, the fewer people on your team, the more game mode does become, dependent on your own personal skill to win. And it boils down to your ability to outpick your enemy, outplay them with mechanical skill, or just come into the game with a better strategy so that you can trigger one of the win conditions first. When playing in a 2v2, you also still get to work together with your teammate, maybe you bring your best friend, use some communication and stuff, and so having the option to go duo is another feature of the map that could have given a really awesome gameplay experience. The really standout thing about a 1v1 or 2v2 game mode is that it honestly is actually pretty amazing for practicing. Now, to be fair, Riot did announce that they're releasing a practice mode, which is going to be pretty useful for working on specific mechanics and stuff, but it's only really for doing stuff by yourself. A 1v1 or 2v2 game mode would let you practice those skills in potentially a more realistic environment. Say you wanted to practice, a specific lane matchup, or maybe you wanted to work on your CSing while being pressured by an actual competent enemy. These things won't necessarily be possible in the sandbox practice mode that's coming out, but could definitely work out on a map like Magma Chamber. Kind of like ARAM or maybe the temporary game modes, it could definitely be viewed as a casual game mode too, where the aim is really just having fun rather than actively practicing your skills, and from that perspective, it can be a really good thing because, not everyone has a lot of people that they can group up with, and limiting a game mode to 1v1 could give those players a casual game mode that they can enjoy without the stresses that come with playing in a team-based environment. It could also be made into a pretty competitive queue as well, honestly. I mean, one of the reasons people love solo queue so much is that it gives them really just the most accurate possible rating of their own personal skill. And even that is limited since, your teammates definitely do have some degree of influence on whether or not you're winning games in solo queue. In a 1v1 mode, there's no other variable to blame, it's just your skill versus the skill of your opponent. And so in terms of getting a rank for your individual skill, there's maybe not really so much of a better way to do it, honestly. The other really cool thing about a 1v1 or 2v2 map is that it would kind of give such a massively different league experience to what most players are used to. There'd be no junglers, no team fighting, just super clean and cookie cutter laning and just straight up duels between the players. One thing that Riot have to make sure that they do with new game modes though is definitely to make sure that they're distinct so that, people don't get bored or maybe feel like they could get the same experience in a different queue mode. ARAM was a great example of this. A lot of players enjoyed that take on the League of Legends experience, and it was a lot different from what, people were familiar with to the regular game modes where they could pick their own champions and have to think about all those different aspects of a normal game on Summoner's Rift. As a lane-focused map, Magma Chamber could be used to help people improve their laning ability as well. The skills you develop would be the same ones that you need when you're laning on Summoner's Rift in general. A good example for the benefits of that would be, maybe imagine playing a bunch of games in ARAM. You probably wouldn't master a champion from using them in ARAM, but you definitely would learn a lot about the strengths and weaknesses of each champion and generally just develop more of an awareness of what each champion's abilities can do and just how they function in general. It's not, of course, going to immediately improve your mechanics when you head right back into Summoner's Rift, but it could definitely make you a better player in terms of improving your game awareness. A lane-centric map like Magma Chamber could have the same effect for your early game, whether you prefer top, mid, or even down in the bot lane. Obviously, for mid laners and top laners, it would be better to focus on playing the map in a 1v1 situation where it's just you against one other player, since that gives a more accurate representation of what it's like to lane against someone in a normal game. But for bot laners, the 2v2 game mode would be awesome because it gives you the opportunity, build synergy and stuff like that, and other skills that you could use in something like a ranked duo queue mode. Now, to make the Magma Chamber map and game mode really work, it would definitely have to be like a permanent game mode rather than part of Riot's rotating game mode queue. For starters, the time and money it actually would take to develop that entire map essentially means it would be a huge waste of resources unless players had constant access to it and generally just played the map a lot. On top of that, if it's going to be used as like a casual fun game mode, a practice mode, and have a competitive queue, it would potentially need to stick around long term so that most players can hop into it whenever they had time or maybe wanted to change from 5v5 or ARAM. Most temporary maps feature like crazy rule sets or twisted on like the conventional Summoner's Rift format, doing all kinds of wacky stuff, which kind of makes them fun at the time, but they do kind of, wear out quickly and grow stale pretty fast. But for a mode that's a huge change from what players are used to, the novelty probably would not wear off nearly as quickly, so making it permanent would, I would say, be ideal to prevent players from kind of feeling lame once the game mode rotated out. Think about it like this. Twisted Treeline's 3v3 mode is a permanent mode because it's still a serious mode that just has a completely different strategy attached to it, whereas modes like Black Market Brawlers are a lot less serious, a lot more wacky and kind of goofy, and a lot more casual focus. So after a few days on rotation, a lot of people kind of just like got their fix, they got their time, their fun from the game mode, and they're just kind of bored with it and they won't really invest more effort into actually playing the game. Now, one thing we do know that might come as a surprise to some of you guys, but essentially the main reason that Riot stopped working on Magma Chamber, the reason why it essentially got cancelled in the first place, was actually that the similar 1v1 2v2 game mode that they tested, Snowdown Showdown, was apparently not particularly popular, or at least not popular enough, with players only spending approximately 1% of their in-game time spent in that game mode. It's not necessarily that players didn't really enjoy the game mode, it was just that players didn't spend enough time actually playing it when they had it released on the rotating game queue for Riot to think that it could work as a permanent game mode like it was intended to be. The development team concluded that it wasn't sustainable, so development on the project was cancelled. That being said though, one of the huge flaws of Snowdown Showdown at the time was that a lot of players kind of just knew that it wasn't going to be around forever, so you couldn't really get that investment in it. Getting too involved with the game mode didn't really have much of a reward at all attached to it. It was a lot of fun to, hop in as a warm-up game or just try and test out your skills or just have a quick, 5-minute game session, but knowing that it wouldn't be around permanently meant that there was no point in treating it seriously. At the same time as well, Riot's statistic, or at least the way they presented their statistic, is also a little bit misleading. They said that players spent only 1% of their in-game time in the game mode, which means that if you consider all of the time that they spent in a game, 1% was spent in Snowdown Showdown. But the thing is that it's just a game mode that's so much faster. One game of Summoner's Rift is like 40 minutes, whereas one game of Snowdown Showdown could be as quick as like 2-3 definitely not more than like 5 or 10 minutes for sure. So it's kind of misleading in that sense. Like, I think if it would have been better for them to present the statistic in a way that looks more at like total games played or something like that. So based on the way they presented the statistic, it's definitely the case that players spent a lot more than 1% of their total games as Snowdown Showdown when it was available. So if Riot had released Magma Chamber instead of the Snowdown event, gave it a competitive ranked ladder queue, it probably would have been a million times more popular, honestly, just because players as well would have loved to see how high on the leaderboards they can get, see how well they were rated against their friends and all sorts of stuff, and that competitive edge is a huge part of what can make or break a game mode, and marketing it as both good for fun, practice, and with the potential of being like a really cool competitive mode, I think it would definitely be more popular among the player base rather than kind of just being like a one-off thing that they do with temporary game modes. As well, something that's kind of interesting is that Overwatch is starting to come out with their own version of this in like a 1v1, 2v2, 3v3 game mode that they're releasing very soon, and it's something that has been met with very positive reception in the Overwatch community. The players are loving it, everyone's having a blast with it, and it's going to be a lot of fun for them, and it's something that I would love to see come to League of Legends, and hopefully Riot can maybe take some lessons from Blizzard on the success of Overwatch's 1v1, 2v2 game modes, and maybe see if they can bring something like that to League in the future. Maybe not necessarily in the form of Magma Chamber, but just in some kind of permanent game mode sometime soon. Either way though, that's just about gonna wrap up our thoughts on Magma Chamber, the 1v1 2v2 game mode, and why we think it'd be really awesome of Riot to just release the game mode as a permanent mode. A few Rioters have actually said that they would love to find a way to make a 1v1 or 2v2 mode from League of Legends because it offers, such a huge shift from the usual League of Legends formula. So it's definitely possible that we could see it return one day, although probably, or maybe not necessarily, on the Magma Chamber map specifically. That being said though, it did look super awesome and different from the current maps, so maybe if the community protests loud enough, Riot would consider turning this one into a reality. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, so definitely let us know in the comment section below whether you would like to see Magma Chamber or maybe just any other map that supports a 1v1 or 2v2 game mode as a permanent part of League of Legends in the future. And either way, it looks like that's going to be it from me. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.